I'm going to start off, Simon, around the discussion around the value of security as an opportunity for owners and operators.
Thank you, John. Good afternoon, everybody. The value of security for owners and operators. We've heard speakers this morning talk about security as a cost center. We've heard speakers this morning talk about security as a grudge buy. For me, as an independent consultant, I'm always looking to try to leverage security as a value add. Why should an organization invest in security technology, physical security, and an excellent operational security function? There are a number of schemes now that are independent schemes that are operated by people like the Building Research Establishment out of the UK that provide third-party accreditation schemes for best practice in security. SABRE is one, police initiatives that both promotes legislative compliance but also secured by design and safer parking initiatives, which makes the asset more attractive for the people that are actually going to be going there to use a leisure facility or a hospitality function.
Thanks, Simon. And Khalid, sort of coming on the back of what Simon's talking about, particularly around compliance and regulations, at CERA, you're heavily involved in the inspection and the testing of security equipment, which makes our hospitality sector incredibly safe compared to the rest of the world. Yes. What's some of the work you're doing around that and some of the successes that you've seen?
Good evening first. What we do is from the beginning we do approve the security drawing for all the premises in Dubai. Then it works in parallel with the security lab, which do the testing for all the security equipment fitted to those premises. Then we have an audit sector which goes on the field and do inspect all the security system installed that it is as per the regulator. Then we do an inspection randomly to the sites to make sure that those systems are running perfectly and helping in securing the hospitality of Dubai.
Thanks, Carla. And coming on to you, Steve, and I believe recently you were involved with a mega event here in Dubai, and perhaps you could talk about some of the challenges and the solutions on how you looked at security by design and regulators and how did that all get... Oh, thank you. So I'm going to stop for a second and welcome David, okay, onto the stage. I was wondering what happened. So thanks, David. We've started, and I'm going to come back to Steve here. Just talk about this mega project you're involved in and some of the challenges and then some of the solutions around design, around regulation.
Yeah, so I just finished 4 years at Dubai Expo, at the World Expo. So again, it was a huge mega event and an event which had never taken place in the region. Never mind the UAE. You know, this was a 6-month event which was very full on, which combined everything from 180 countries, National Day celebrations, including heads of state, including all these diplomats arriving on a daily basis, as well as having we had just shy of 25 million visitors over 6 months. So we peaked at up to 300,000 people a day on weekends, on national holidays, averaging kind of like 100,000 footfall each day. And the challenges that we had in the region is that, again, it's, the security guards, they are trained very well. We had key stakeholders in CERA and Dubai Police, and they all helped out extraordinary. But what we faced the issue is experience, and especially in event security, you need that experience. You need the guys on the ground to understand crowd modeling. You need to understand crowd movement and what to look for. And that's a problem that we kind of like had initially. And again, it comes back to some of the topics which were kind of like reiterated today with trusting the guys on the ground, and not making them decisions at the executive level. You know, the people on the ground, the senior managers, these crowd management professionals, they know best. And we had challenges at the start, making the executives understand that this is what we need to put in place. We don't just need guards, we need event specialists in some areas. Not every area of Expo required it, but there was key areas that had to have this. How we kind of like mitigated it is basically down to the managers on the ground. We had to do training, we had to do scenarios. But again, you know, scenarios can only be so much, you need experience. So, you know, we luckily we didn't have any major incidents and we managed it. But these are the challenges we had at the start. And then the executive, kind of like the boards of chiefs, finally understood the requirement to have specialist event guards. So then, again, it's all money, it's all budgets. You know, we had to fight that cause, and then we eventually managed to get an event specialist guard force into specific areas, which was key.
So, look, thank you for that. And David, you know, we've touched upon here about crowd management, we've touched upon about design, we've touched on about sort of, I guess, auditing and testing. From your perspective as a technology provider who spends a lot of time doing research and development and forward-looking, how could we, as an industry, integrate security into the facility in such a way where we don't negatively impact the guest experience, where they don't have this overt, hard security thrust in front of them?
Yeah, so it's all about privacy, and it's all about the guest experience in the hospitality industry. And we've developed a product called Halo that's an IoT smart sensor with artificial intelligence and machine learning. And it contributes to a positive guest experience in many, many ways. As an example, in a guest room, we're able to tell the air quality in there in general. We're able to tell if there's a noisy environment that's affecting other people's experience. We're also able to determine if somebody smokes, vapes, or is using THC in that environment that's affecting other residents. That's become very prevalent these days, where they're getting disturbed and people aren't enjoying the environment there. On top of that, we help them prepare for emergencies. The product can actually use a panic button that can be attached, and when the rooms are being cleaned, if there's an emergency, they can double-click a little button and trigger an emergency event that will open up a two-way communications during that emergency. So one thing that's really important to us is being able to make sure that people have a safe experience and also are able to offer something different than other people in the hospitality industry to make people want to come to their facilities.
Thanks, David. And Simon, when we look at some of this technology that's available into the early sort of design phases, where you've got parameters on focusing on brand standards and guest experiences, what are the sort of the best practices we could be looking at or should be considering when we're planning for a project like this?
For me, early engagement is essential, early engagement of a security professional. And if you know a little bit about the Royal Institute of British Architect REBA work stages, you'll see that there is an encouragement at REBA Stage 0, strategic definition, to engage with a security professional. The security professional to be engaged to do a high-level security needs assessment or risk assessment, followed by going to stage 1 and the design brief. Now, this is encouraging stakeholder engagement. It's encouraging understanding the context of the project. It's understanding who the regulator is and what the regulator's requirements are. It's also about understanding the hotel operator and their own brand standard. Typical scenario that we've had recently, John, is a project where we had 4 hotels in a cluster on the overall master plan. And each hotel was a different brand standard, a different operator, and ranging from a 3-star to a 4-star complex. So the security requirements for each of those hotels were slightly different. And there was a reluctance with the architect and the design team to actually look at the security strategy for the master plan, which was the first layer. So unless we started this engagement as early as possible and said, what's already on the table, what's been signed off by the client and the owner operators, there is the potential for the project to have significant overrun and significant additional cost and late opening.
Thanks, Simon. So when we look at the SERA side of it, and someone's looking to design a project, what should they be thinking about? How do I appease the regulator? What should I be taking into consideration to make sure when I get into the inspection, the testing, it meets the compliance? What are the types of considerations they should be having?
First, they should assign an approved security consultancy, which can they do the proper security drawing for them with all the security equipment needed to be fitted as per the regulation in SERA. This will make the life easier for them while the process and building up the premises is going on.
So, Steve, when we're looking at these mega events and we've got these requirements from a SERA body, what are some of the challenges and yet the opportunities that we should be considering around crowded places, around mega events, from a sort of event perspective?
Sorry, could you just repeat?
So what are some of the challenges and opportunities we should be considering when we're thinking about what the regulator might be saying when we're looking at a mega event?
Well, yeah, it's making sure, going back to what Simon was saying before in terms of making sure that engagement with the security manager at the very start of the planning takes place. Because if you leave the production teams, if you leave the event teams without that kind of like engagement of the security management, then things will get overlooked in terms of what security regulations that we may need to put in place to make sure there's enough space for the crowd to disperse, there's enough space for evacuation routes, things like this. So it is making sure that we have early engagement, making sure that we have a manager on the ground who understands the whole event, not just security management. We need to understand how the event's set up, how the build happens, understand the crowd modelling, understand the queuing systems, understand what the footfall needs to be in the foot flow through the queuing systems to make sure that all these regulations are kept.
So thanks, Steve. So David, we kind of look at this overall guest's expectation of experience, and we often refer to video surveillance as the eyes of the security. What about the other sensors? Is it purely what should we be considering?
Sure.
Understanding of the balance between function and technology.
Yeah, so it's really changing dramatically right now. Where if you think of a camera as your eyes, you need other senses like smell to be able to determine smell from different sensors that are there, and hearing to be able to hear different events that might be going on, as well as to pick up early warning for fire or smoke that might be in a building and be able to alert people. So it's all about communicating information and giving a situational awareness to security operators in a facility without impacting on the privacy of the guests that are there. So that's really one of the key things, and that's what we've kind of developed into Halo. I did bring one with me, but this is how simple a device is. It's a power over Ethernet device that has over 16 sensors in it with a single device to be able to automate a lot of the things in a facility with a very, very simple device that allows instant communications during an emergency.
So you made a good point there about sort of the emergency, and Simon, I'm really keen to hear about your concepts and your thoughts around from the beginning of a facility in that early design, those early sort of concept stages, is being able to have the adaptability to escalate, de-escalate based on emergencies and according to operational needs and user profiles. So I'm really keen to hear your thoughts on adaptability.
We have to understand the architectural intended use of space. Who goes where? Access and circulation, pedestrian access, vehicular access, service access, emergency access, and what the architects actually had in mind at the initial master planning or the initial conceptual stage. When a security professional reviews those general arrangement drawings, it's very important to do a gap analysis on spatial coordination, and has the architect thought about defence in depth, but also has the architect thought about the guest experience? Can we actually control the movement of guests? Is the guest arriving in a taxi? Is it a 4-star or a 5-star hotel where the concierge is actually going to take the luggage and put it through a screening system and reunite the guest with their luggage after they've actually completed the check-in process? And have we actually got the space for the screening regime in the right location to actually manage that passage through the hotel properly with least disruption? Similarly, a vehicle arriving at a hotel. Do we have an ANPR system that's actually using white pulsed light? Is the guest, the first guest experience, that they're actually blinded by white light flashing at them? I've been to hotels where that occurs. You know, considerations of how the guest experience is actually going to be affected, for me, is key. And that's underpinned by a security zoning plan as part of that overall assessment, and agreeing that with the design team, agreeing that with the client, and making sure that it has that understanding between how the space is used during the day, out of hours, weekends, and for events.
So when we look at out of hours and weekends, and Carla, coming back to CIRA and what we can expect from inspections and testing, there's obviously different profiles. If an event space or a hospitality space or is open, it's one user model or one approach. But when it's closed, it's a different approach. It's a much more secure approach. So what could the industry learn from CIRA about making sure that they work with CIRA around inspection and testing?
Well, we are always open for them to come and discuss a different environment on their premises where we can change the requirements according to the life and according to the needs of the premises. It's always open to be changed to their needs.
So, Steve, I'm going to come back to you in terms of, you spent a considerable time at Dubai's most prestige mega event. What could other cities learn from the successes of Dubai?
Well, I mean, the biggest challenge for us at the very start was COVID, and it was how the country dealt with COVID. You know, so we, again, at the very, very start of it, for at least the first 3 months, it was, still full masks. It was full checking of on the app. So what we did do in terms of, we mitigated a virus which was going around the world, which was halting other events, and we continued by putting the correct measures in place. We built testing centres within the site, to enable guests to come, to get tested, to get rapid tests, to enable them to then come onto the site and enjoy Expo, knowing that obviously they are negative in terms of COVID. Again, 182 different nationalities came. We had heavy footfall. The best thing that would have come out of it, and again, I go back to the experience, we had 3,000 security doing a 24-hour shift. So at any 12-hour shift, we had over 1,500 security on the ground, using 4 different companies from the UAE. So the experience that these guards and these man guarding took away from Expo is also extremely good as well, because then they can take it. Hopefully the companies will utilize their main security personnel that they had on the ground, and they will now put them into different contracts which they have, and where they can utilize their skill. We talked about customer service, and it was very customer service focused, the security. They could never forget their security responsibilities, but again, it was guest experience. And we talk about, they had a huge last mile, they call it the last mile in events. It's everything from the signage to arriving at the car parks, to getting to the entry points, to make it as smooth as possible. And your first point of contact is the security. So we again, it was all training and enabling them to deal with customers in a way which Expo wanted to prevail themselves. You know, again, the site was huge. We had to have a huge training package to make sure all the guards knew where the Kenya pavilion was or the Comoros pavilion was. And again, there was 180 of them. So that's kind of like they can, you know, I would like to think that they can take away what Expo kind of like portrayed themselves and train the teams on the ground for the visitor experiences.
Thank you so much, and we're running out of time, so we'll have to conclude this panel here. But